public grief, much of it from people either too young to have seen him play or with little or no interest in the game, surprised many and is a measure of the hold Best had on the public imagination.
So many loved you, did you know? We were not ready to let you go. But stars from heaven are only lent, a gift from God. That's why they're sent. We won't forget our Belfast boy. You filled our lives with so much joy. Your star will shine now in the sky. Farewell, our friend, but not goodbye.
I think that when he came on the scene, I think he carried every young person's dreams in the 60s. It was the time of freedom, of expression, and it was an era that was come out of wartime. It was a liberation of young people in those days, and I think George carried their dreams.
In terms of ability, he was the best endowed footballer of all time. I mean, he could do almost anything. Speed, complete mastery over not only the ball, but his own body. You could scythe his legs away and he wouldn't fall because his balance was uncanny, almost supernatural. Heading ability, passing ability. I mean, it goes without saying, the dribbling. I mean, he could beat anybody in any way he chose. I mean, for fun, he'd beat players by playing a 1-2 off the opponent's shins.
With Denis Law and Bobby Charlton in place, Manchester United already boasted a fearsome attack. Best's arrival and impact was to be as thunderous and direct as a Charlton piledriver.
That impact had a quality that went beyond how it contributed to results. George was a tremendously productive player, as we know. An amazing goal scorer for a man who, as Alec Ferguson has pointed out, nearly always had to beat a man to score a goal, or nearly always insisted in beating a man before he scored a goal. But I think that the additional scope of George's achievement was how he made people feel when they watched him.
George Best was just 15 when he arrived in Manchester in 1961. Matt Busby, the United manager, was determined to make him feel at home.
I'd been at Manchester United for a year when the boss, Matt Busby, said that as I was a flash cockney so-and-so, he wanted me to look after these two shy Belfast boys coming over from Northern Ireland, Eric McMordy and George Best. So, of course, I kept an eye on him, and after 2 days he ran back home homesick.
Our parents, who didn't have a lot of money, forked out to buy us our first pair of long trousers to go to Manchester United. They took us to Mrs. Fullaway, the digs that George eventually went back instead with. We were just so homesick, 15 years of age, just out of school. But not only that, when we got to Manchester, you know, we took part in the training session, you know. There was Denis Law, Bobby Charlton, Pat Cryer, and I think we were a little bit out of our depth as well.
Please let me know that it's real.
Busby persuaded Best to return, and very quickly it became apparent that his was a talent worth fighting for.
It was very apparent how good he was. It was a changing period, obviously after Munich and all of that. The club was being rebuilt. There'd been signings made into the first team, but then there was a strong youth team coming through at that time, of which George and I were part of that. In some ways football is a selfish game. You're trying to make your own way. Yes, it was blatantly obvious that he was an outstanding player.
I remember watching him in training and watching him playing in a youth match, and I just couldn't believe the skill he had. I was just stunned by it. And Jack Crompton was the trainer of United in those days, and I spoke to Jack about him. I mean, nobody's ever mentioned this kid to me. And Jack just laughed and says, well, we're keeping him under wraps, we're not telling anybody about him. I mean, he was that good.
Very soon the secret was out. Fullbacks would quickly learn about his sublime skills. He was only 17 when he made his debut, and he immediately became a key part of the team. Law, Best and Charlton would wreak havoc on defences.
You're looking at him and you're thinking, well, he's just one of the youngsters coming through. And it's not until after the game you're thinking, oh, he's a bit special. And that was about George. You would talk about him in the dressing room and you'd be saying, he's a bit special. Television had just started filming games and they had Match of the Day. And if George was on Match of the Day, you would sit in and watch. And I would be there thinking, what? Oh, look at that. What about this? What about that? And you'd be thinking, oh, wait till I play. I hope he doesn't do that. Then you'd love him and you'd watch the television. Then the day would come where I want to play at Manchester United. I want to play against George Best. 90 minutes later, you're saying, oh, I wish I hadn't have turned up. And your teammates would be saying, you shouldn't have turned up.
His reputation off the pitch also started to blossom. Best's timing was, as always, impeccable. Good-looking and charismatic, the country was looking for a new kind of football hero. United hadn't won the league since the Busby Babes in 1957, but with Best supplying the bullets for others, in 1965 United were crowned champions, and unique goals like this played a big part. Anything was possible.
I just saw the possibility. I knew I could do it, so I thought, why not go for it? There might have been someone waiting for a cross. Would have been easier, but I didn't normally take the easy option, and it worked out.
And if there was one criticism of George, this was it. Parting with the ball was against his nature.
His understanding of the team concept was a bit shaky at most times. I suppose one of the reasons was he didn't think he needed anybody else, but he did, and Busby, was said often that he would watch him play with a mixture of exasperation and disbelief when he did something. He would be crying, pass it to Dennis, pass it to George, and then George did something utterly match-changing, and he would say to himself, well, maybe I should shut up.
He was quite infuriating to play with, as you say. I would go into position to get the ball. He should have given me the ball. It was easier then to score. He wouldn't give me it. Then I'd go back, and then you'd say he would come out, and you think, you're out of order here. And then he'd go and score a fantastic goal. So you just sort of say, well.
George didn't have that great sense of the wider game that some of the other great players have. He was, by instinct and in practice, an individual marauder, a destroyer of defences.
Busby was prepared to tolerate George's minor weakness. He recognised match-winning greatness